Hello, fabulous listeners. Thanks for tuning in to Old Bodies Outside. This is your host, Brian Peterson. This episode's guest is Don Reichelt, who is a very accomplished trail and ultra runner. In November of 2022, he set 3 manual treadmill world records in the span of 24 hours for furthest distance run in 12 hours, fastest 100 miles, and furthest distance run in 24 hours. Additionally, he has run a trail 100 miler in 13 hours and 16 minutes, and he is a plant-based athlete. I invited Don onto Old Bodies Outside because I was curious to learn more about his mental fortitude, his running knowledge, and also to connect with another plant-based ultra runner. Don, it's a pleasure to have you on Old Bodies Outside.
Hey, thanks so much, Brian. I appreciate the warm intro and really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, we got a few things in common.
Absolutely. That's why I'm excited about it.
Yeah, one of the things as I was preparing, I noticed that you're a dog dad, I think. I think I read that you have 2 dogs.
That's correct, yeah.
What kind of breeds do you have?
So they're both rescues, and our older dog she's a pit Doberman mix, and her name is Bean, and our younger dog, we just found out she's a boxer pit, cattle dog, a whole bunch of other stuff mix, and her name is Sprout. So together they're our rescue pair of Bean Sprout.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. So the Doberman pit, is it more... I've been interested in Dobermans because I've heard they can make good running dogs, but it's got the pit in it, which could slow it down as being a runner.
Man, that dog loves to run more than anything, and we can get into this more too, but I created this like mythical run club in my brain called Bean Sprout Run Club, and it's like when I'm racing and I'm going through a really hard patch, I think about how much those 2 dogs love to run. And I'm like, all right, if Bean Sprout Run Club was right here with me, what would I be doing? And that's, I know we're going to get a little bit more into mental fortitude later, but it's one of my strategies of just thinking about how much Bean Sprout loves to run, like just loves it more than anything else on the planet. And I have a lot to learn from those 2 dogs and how much they love to run.
Yeah, I totally agree about that. So I have 2 dogs. I have a Vizsla and a Boxer. And I take them running out in this little 2-mile trail network that I have, and dogs are allowed to be off leash there. And man, the joy that they bring to it. I mean, They are whining to get out of the car. They don't have any motivation issues of putting their running shoes on and getting going. They are just so excited to be out there.
Bean only has motivation issues if it's weathering outside. She is, for being a tough dog on paper, she is not a tough dog at all. If there's anything coming from the sky, that dog will not go out. It's pretty funny. It's also funny. You have a Vizsla. She looks like a Vizsla. Even Vizsla owners think that they ask like, "Oh, is she Vizsla?" It's like, no, she's not at all Vizsla.
Really? Well, she kind of acts like a Vizsla. My Vizsla is. She's the sensitive dog, and she's a great runner. But if it's raining outside, she's like, I don't want to go outside and even go to the bathroom.
Yeah, it was like a blizzard this morning when she woke up, and she took one step outside and just backed up and went back onto the couch.
Yeah. Nope. My Boxer, on the other hand, her disposition is just, she's ready for anything, and she's just kind of a tank, and her endurance isn't quite as good. Like I would say that past an hour run, she's good in an hour. Like I've done some hour and a half runs with her, but she's pretty good in an hour. And she's also struggles a little bit more with the heat with being a bigger dog. Yeah,
that's our Boxer mutt mix is the same way. She doesn't do well over an hour and starts struggling, but the pit Dobie, that dog will run forever.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, hey, let's hear about your running, and how did you get into running?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and it's kind of a tale that it comes back to the story eventually. I ran in high school and I really hated it, but I did it to do it because I wanted to do all the things. And I really hated it looking back now because I had bad coaches and I had bad just just leaders. They didn't make running fun, and it doesn't always have to be fun, but you should get some kind of a joy out of it if you're doing it competitively. So I actually ran in high school. I didn't run at all in college. I walked onto the crew team at the University of Iowa where I went to school, and I rode crew for 4 years. And when I got done, I had no athletic out, and I actually started putting on a ton of weight because I had no structured activity. I wasn't working out. So I was rowing at like 160 pounds. I remember weighing in 199 pounds. I was like, oh, something's got to change. So I bought a bike and started biking quite a bit. I had a buddy that was doing a triathlon. He's like, hey man, you should do this triathlon thing. I was like, okay, sure. Didn't know how to swim. But I said, hey, I've always been kind of a go big or go home type. And so I said, okay, but I heard about this thing called an Ironman. Like, if we're going to do it, we're going to train for a year and do an Ironman. And so that stupid commitment of signing up for an Ironman on a whim, without knowing how to swim really, brought me back to running. And so I did that Ironman successfully. I did 2 more Ironman, and I hated swimming still, and realized that something had to change. And at the time I had a buddy that was doing a 100-mile race in Leadville, and I had just moved to Colorado from Chicago, and he asked me to pace him like 28 miles at the time over a mountain. And I was like, wow, that sounds really hard. I'm in, let's do it. And I ran those 28 miles with him. It destroyed me. And I said, great, how can I sign up for this? And so I signed up the next year for not just a 100-mile run, but the whole Leadman series, because I was coming from a little bit of a biking background. The Leadman series has mountain biking and running. You do all the series in Leadville. And so that's what got me to back to running, really, is getting fat, starting riding a bike, doing a triathlon, hating swimming, having a buddy doing an ultra run, and then just jumping in to say, like, great, like, I moved to Colorado to be in the mountains. Let's run up some mountains. And, it's fast forward to today. I never did it to be competitive. I never did it to win anything. I did it because I moved to Colorado to be in the mountains. And I realized that riding a road bike and running on pavement wasn't why I moved to Colorado. And I just figured out how to spend more time in the mountains, and that was running.
Yeah, well, I love how much you covered there with, I always think about my experiences with coaches, and I'm on the converse of you. So I had a phenomenal high school coach who, he was teaching at my high school. He had a PhD in history, but he brought that same level of analytics to running. And he was an 800-meter runner in high school and college, but he had never done cross country, and he found himself being the coach of the cross country team. And man, this guy, I learned way more from him. I had a good college coach too, but my high school coach, I learned a lot from, and it fostered my love for running. He got so detailed with everything and types of workouts we did. I really loved it a lot. And I think that, as you were saying that, it got me thinking how important it is for a coach to get someone to love running, just simply love running.
Yeah. I got the feeling that the coaches that I had in high school were just, they needed somebody to take the job. And, the track coach was this really hard German guy that, he was a soccer coach, and a soccer coach first and foremost. But if somebody has to coach track, he'll coach track. And the cross country coach was had no patience for developmental. He cherished the people that could just naturally run a 15-minute 5K, and didn't really have time for the people that didn't. And so it was like, not everybody wakes up and runs a 15-minute 5K. I've never run a 15-minute 5K. I never will. And that's okay. I never broke 20 minutes in high school in the 5K. And I just, having somebody that just looked upon that as like, oh, you're not worth my time to develop, really left a sour taste in my mouth about running.
Yeah. Now, and you're answering the first question about how did you get into running. One thing that I noticed was your ability, I don't know, your audacity to take on challenges. You're just like, hey, I'm going for the Leadville series that you mentioned. And where do you think that came from in your life?
I don't know. That's probably a question for me to work out with a therapist, but I just have always enjoyed monumental challenges. Like there is some inherent satisfaction about signing up for something that I don't know if I'll succeed at. And I've always been that way of, okay, this is something that most people would say like, holy crap, why would we do that? This is something that a lot of people wouldn't even think about. And I just have always gotten the satisfaction that has always intrinsically motivated me, knowing that most people think this is crazy. So yeah, Leadman was one of those. The treadmill thing that you mentioned in the intro, wondering if I could run 100 miles sub 8-minute pace was one of those. And then most recently, this 250-mile race I did is just, it's just always thinking about what's something that's really hard that I don't know if I can do, and proving to myself that like, hell yeah, like I don't need to win to prove that I've been successful. I just need to get to that finish line.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think like this is a very much an oversimplification, but I have come across people are like, for me, run 100 miles. They're like, Brian, that's so crazy. Why do you run 100 miles? And sometimes on the opposite end of things, I'm like, because you live once. Like, you know, take on some challenges, have some fun with it, see what your bounds are. And
the
yeah,
boundaries is a big one, right? Like I never want to be the guy that sitting on my deathbed someday wondering like, oh, could I have run further? Could I have run faster? I recently did a 48-hour race that the USATF 100-mile national championship was going on. And in that 100-mile national championship was the age groups. And there were 5 octogenarians, so 5 80-year-old plus men running. Wow. And I had a chance to and I was doing the 48-hour race, so I didn't mind. Talk about some wisdom of these guys running 100 miles in their 80s. So I made a point to stop and walk or jog with each one of them. And the sentiment was pretty much all the same of like, they're running today and they're enjoying running today because they legitimately don't know if they'll be running tomorrow. They don't know if they'll be live tomorrow. And so I've always had this mentality, and I remember it clear as day when I was getting into the water for my very first Ironman. And it gets me emotional to this day to think about this sign because I live by it every day. Is the sign said, the day will come when you can no longer do this, but today is not that day. And like literally it allows me, that mentality allows me to, whatever race it is, whatever training run it is, it allows me to harness like, I could get hit by a freaking car tonight. I could not wake up tomorrow. Like, you bet your ass I'm going to enjoy going out for a 5-mile easy run tonight. Like, it might be snowing, whatever, but I get to do this. Like, this is pure like passion, joy. Like, I get to do this. There's people in this world running from stuff that Brian, you and I will never be able to comprehend. Like, they're running for their lives and we get to do it. We choose to. So I do not take that lightly. I think it's a privilege. It's a joy. It is something that it drives me to keep moving.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is a privilege. And that was going through my mind when you were giving your explanation there, was like, we're very fortunate to have that privilege. And then, you know, taking the next step and be like, hey, I'm going to have fun with this and act on it because I have the ability to do that. And so also, while you were giving your explanation, I was thinking about a little mental toolbox that I have that I call the morbid perspective. And the morbid perspective is, if I'm on my deathbed, you know, am I going to be looking back being like, hey, did I have fun with life? Did I take on chances? Did I do things that make my gut knot up and make me feel uncomfortable? So, hey, why don't we transfer into hearing about the treadmill, your treadmill records? But, you know, more than the physical component with your treadmill records, I am just impressed and in awe of the mental component of it. And so leading up to your treadmill race, like, did you do any like mental training to like be like, okay, I'm going to be in the same spot for 24 hours. I'm going to have to stay motivated. I'm going to stay driven. Like, what did you do?
Yeah, I worked with a mental strength coach.
Really?
Leading up to it. Yeah. It's a guy that works out of Adams State. He works with all of their runners down there, and that's one of the most successful track and cross country programs in the nation. And so it's Dr. I could get this wrong. Dr. Ziegler, I think his name is Ziegler. And so he basically has a whole program to put athletes through of redefining your why, understanding what's going to go through, like when you want to quit, what's going to keep you going. And so I've always been, I've said this literally since I started ultra running, is that my only elite trait is my mind. I've always been mentally tough, but standing on a treadmill for 24 hours, staring at a wall inside, was going to be my biggest test. So I definitely invested in my mind a little bit more. I spent time with him. I worked with a sports psychologist as well. So I had a two-person team on that, just to make sure my mind was right going into it. Because right, we as athletes, you think about how many hours you put into training physically. Well, if the weakest point of myself as a runner was my mind, that was what was going to break down. So I wanted to make sure I was training that just as hard. And there's some really cool apps out there. There's one that I worked with a little bit called Rewire, which is mental strength training as well. It just puts your brain through some really frustrating mind puzzles that progressively get harder, that I would do daily. I meditated a ton just to be able to, hey, when things get uncomfortable, can I segment this? Can I turn this out? So I did a lot of mental work. And then on race day, I actually had, this is where we're going to talk about my dogs again, but I love my dogs more than anything, right? I told you about Bean Sprout Run Club. Well, right before the treadmill challenge, I lost my Basset Hound of 13 and a half years. And that dog, and I'm going to get emotional right now, and I apologize, but that dog was my best friend through some of the most challenging parts of my life and some of the most formative years of my life. And she was there right beside me. And so when I got her, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I did my first ever running race. I got convinced into doing a half marathon. And it was on Halloween, and she was at the finish line. And so since then, she had been at pretty much every race at the finish line or with me since. And so that event in New York City on the treadmill was going to be the first one that she wasn't at, and it was breaking my heart. And so I print out a bunch of pictures of her and a bunch of pictures of my other two dogs, and throughout the entire 24 hours, my wife and my crew just rotated those pictures. And so I not only had Bean Sprout Run Club with me, I had Wrigley, my late Basset Hound, there with me on the treadmill the whole time. So I had that motivation of just, I'm running for my dog that I miss and I love, and I'm running for my other two dogs. And I know it's like, how can that get you through 24 hours? But man, like the love of a dog and the love of those dogs of running it really did help me on my low points.
Yeah, Don, that's really wonderful. And I've never met someone that has done so much mental preparation going into something. In fact, like I started thinking about Kobe Bryant in a way, Michael Jordan with, like their mental preparations with, having the courage and the fortitude to take try to take the game-winning shot, see what happens. But I know that I think wasn't Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan cut from their high school team or something, and they had to.
I think Michael Jordan was, yeah.
Yeah. The mind really, it's interesting how the physical component of athleticism gets people to a certain point, but it's the mind that elevates them to the next higher level. And yeah, that's so cool that you did mental strength. You did mental strength work with the coach over at Adams State. They certainly know what they're doing at Adams State with runners. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I knew I had to have a strategy, right? It's something you can't go into without a plan. And I've been big on visualization and work on the past in past races to get me through low patches. But and I'll say this today, I'm on the other side of it. It was the hardest mental thing I've ever done in my life. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it wasn't the physical side that made it hard. It was the mental side for sure. Especially when you're running in place, right? They talk about repetitive use. Once one little thing pops up that's hurting on your body, you have no way of changing your stride. Really, you have nothing you can do and you have nothing to refocus you unless you have the mindset to be able to move that. So I definitely struggled with, oh my gosh, my hip flexor hurts. Oh my God, my hamstring hurts. And I'm only 60 miles in. What is happening? How am I going to possibly run 100 miles or more? And having those toolboxes, right? You're going to go through these low patches, and having as many arrows in the quiver that you can shoot at these challenges as possible really set me up for success on that whole event.
Yeah, I never thought about the repetition just with the running. I mean, that's one thing that is different, say, if you're out on the trail, right? There's a lot of variation in the terrain and whatnot. I never thought about that repetition. And how that can break you down over, 50, 60
Oh,
miles, and you still got 40 or 50 miles to go.
dude,
You got to deal with
it
that.
was so hard. And then there was the other, like when you're running outside, if you're doing a 100-mile race and you're not feeling great, it's okay. I can make it to the next aid station, right? It's only 3 miles ahead or 2 miles ahead. You have those carrots, or I can go to that tree, or I can go to that mountain. That got me through Cocodona last week for sure. It's just okay. This is where this is. This is where that is. But man, if you're running on a treadmill staring at a freaking wall, you have none of that. It is, you have to get really
Wow.
creative for like how you're going to convince your brain to go another 2 minutes, even if you have 8 hours left.
Yeah. How did you handle what type like handle your expectations? And what I mean by that is, for me personally, which this may not work for anyone else, but going into a 100-mile race for myself, I do better when I set my expectations lower, and I think it's
Yep.
something to do with not feeling the pressure as much, not building the pressure in my head as much. Do you manage your expectations? How do you approach your expectations?
Yeah, I can't lie to myself. My expectations are really high, and I try to convince myself to temper them a little bit. Usually at races, like, oh, like I'm gonna go do this, and then I actually go through usually a pretty tough patch once I realize the first time I realized like maybe that was a little unrealistic of my brain. And so it's that event specifically, the treadmill was probably the best I've ever been at tempering the expectations a little bit, just because nobody's ever done it before to the scale that I did it on. And so there was no real big carrot. Guinness set the bars, and I was like, okay, I was pretty darn confident that where they set each one of those three world records wasn't going to be a huge issue. And so that's the only expectation I have, right? If I would have walked away with 100 miles exactly, I would have gotten all three records. I went another 14 or whatever more miles over that. But my expectations were set at the bar of Guinness, and that's as soon as I hit the first one, we celebrated, right? Like, holy crap, we did it. When we got to the second one, holy crap, we did it. And when we got to the third one, it was like, oh my God, like I'm 3 for 3. Like, how many people call their shot to get 3 world records, turn around, wake up and do it?
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, and so how did you? So your world record, it took place at where in Manhattan, New York City?
It was a Lifetime Fitness. It was the lobby of a Lifetime on 23rd Street in downtown Manhattan.
Wow, wow. So this was. How did you handle being in a public setting with doing this, and was that actually preferable?
Um, on paper, before, yes. Reality, it was not. So like training, I did 40-mile long runs in my living room staring at the wall, and it went great. But I was able to zone out in a public lobby with people coming and going, and it's freaking New York City, so there's something always going on the street. I One of the strategies that I had going in didn't work at all because I couldn't tune any of it out because there was just so much going on. There was no way for me to kind of put blinders up and just run for a while. So that was one strategy that I was going to rely on mentally to get through things. It's just, hey, headphones in, just run for a while. Didn't work at all because there was so much noise. That being said, once the gym closed overnight, and so it was just the crew and our Guinness judges and things like that. That became a little easier because then it was just 5 or 6 people, eight maybe at a time, and we could have some fun. I took over the sound system of the lobby, and we did a Disney sing along at like 2 a.m. because I just needed some stupid entertainment, and it turned into a ton of fun. But yeah, looking back, so I was doing it with the brand 10,000. They're based in New York City, and they wanted to do it in their backyard, overlapping New York City Marathon weekend. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Because my only parameter when I pitched it to them, and they said this sounds great, my only request is that we do it at sea level, right? I live at 9,600 feet. I wasn't doing it in my living room for sure. I was going to take as much advantage as I can of the oxygen down low. And they're like, great. So they set it all up in that lobby, and it was awesome. That staff was amazing. They did everything and anything for us. I remember first starting, and I had control of the music on my phone because we hooked it to like a speaker, and I slowly started turning the speaker up, and I was like, okay, they're going to tell me no. And like, okay, 5 minutes later, nobody said no. So I turned it up another couple, and I'm like, Now they've got to come tell me no. And like finally it was just
Yeah.
like jamming in that lobby, and we look back and the front desk is like dancing with us, and we're like, all right, this place is rad.
Nice. And so what's the go-to music that motivates you?
Oh, man, it jumps around. It totally jumps around. It really depends on a lot of different things in the moment. There's like inspirational ballads. I do love a good Disney song. Go the Distance from Hercules is a pretty amazing ultra running song. Cause he's like, I'll be there someday. I can go the distance. It's like, damn, if you're going through it, like, put that song on. Especially there's this dude, Peyton Parrish, that just put out a metal version of it. And so it's like a hard rock Disney.
Love it.
That stuff's awesome. Just anything inspirational. I have a playlist that I call it my suffer playlist. I ask 10 of my closest friends and family members to give me one song. So when I'm going through it, like I'll put that on, and it's not all just heavy metal, like, run through wall stuff. Something like one of them's like the song my wife walked down the aisle on. It's stuff that is going to change my mindset. And this is another mental strategy, right, that I developed was, just get you out of the funk of feeling bad for yourself or feeling miserable. And so, how can I possibly be negative when I think about my wife walking down the aisle to that song? Like, so it's just like, what is that song that it'll flip a switch, or it's a song my mom put on there. It's meaningless to me, but it's a song my mom wanted me to have on there. So it's going to remind me of my mom for 3 or 4 minutes. And it's stuff like that like music is music, and I do love music a lot, but like having a certain amount of songs that mean something emotionally to you, that tie back to something emotional, like, dude, like even if you cry, I don't care. I cried like a baby during Cocodona when I was playing this playlist, and You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog is on there, and it reminded me of my late dog Wrigley, and like it's like, damn, like I was feeling bad for myself, I was feeling sorry, but talk about good memories, like me and that dog. So like sometimes even sad songs can flip that switch for you and just give you a new emotion to feel, and it changes that mindset.
Yeah, maybe that's it, is changing the emotion that you're currently feeling, switch over something else, and then it's like the intrinsic motivation then jumps and you're back into it or something.
Yeah. It's amazing how powerful, like I said, it can be a positive song, it can be a negative song. It can remind you of a sappy memory. You can cry like a baby. Like, go through the emotions. It's okay. The goal is just to stop feeling that negative emotion that you're going through, that anger, the misery, the pity, like whatever you're feeling on that, mile 80 of 100. Everybody feels it, but it's the people that can minimize or get out of that faster that tend to get to that finish line quicker.
Yeah. I wonder if there's ever been someone that's like mapped out different emotions that they want to hit throughout a race, and they have like songs that go with it or something, just to get some real deep changes going on. Who knows? But
yeah, that'd be heavy.
It would be. I wanted though. You are on a treadmill here. You are trying to set a record. You got the Guinness officials there. Now, strategically placing the treadmill had to be important. Like I would want it to be 5 feet from a bathroom so I can run in real quick and then get back at it.
So that's actually a really funny point, because that was one of my biggest sticking points about this location, because there's no bathroom in the lobby.
Oh, no.
The closest bathroom is upstairs.
No, like, you don't want to go upstairs.
I'm not doing it. Like, no. And finally they're like, okay, well, we're not hosting the event unless we do this in the lobby. There's an elevator 20 feet from where the treadmill is. There's a private bathroom 20 feet from that elevator upstairs. We'll escort you up and down. And so I was actually pretty upset about it going into it. Like, oh, that sucks. Like, can I just pee in a bucket? Like, give me, like, I have a tent. I have a pop-up tent. Like, let me just
put a porta potty next to me.
Yeah. Like, they're like, no, hard no. And so I was like, what? So I was actually pissed about it, but it turns out that quiet time of me sitting in the elevator for 30 seconds and walking to that bathroom away from the noise of the lobby ended up being like a really welcome reprieve from the noise of the lobby. So it's funny how sometimes the thing that you think is like, no, this is going to ruin me, is actually the thing that kind of saved me at times where I just needed a quiet moment. they put a chair in the elevator. I would just sit there away from noise and go to that bathroom and then come back down. I mean, it took me, the round trip was like 90 seconds, right? It was the grand scheme of things, it's almost nothing. But I was upset about it going in, thinking that, oh, it's going to take 90 seconds off the treadmill. Well, that 90 seconds sometimes saved my mindset.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So like when I've run and I've done 4 road marathons, and I'm always like trying to like get up to the start line a little bit dehydrated so I don't have to pee during the race, because I want to like save 30 seconds.
Yeah. It's funny how little things like that. I mean, I used a porta potty in I've never trained for a marathon. I did one time to shut up some road running buddies of mine that said trail runners can't run fast. So I jumped into a real marathon in the middle of like 120-mile week or something like that. And I remember I had to use the porta potty at like mile 6. And I was like, oh no, like, here's a minute, 90 seconds, whatever it took me to go number 2 in this porta potty. And I still ran 2:45. Like, okay, well, if you can, on tired legs run 2:45 and use the porta potty, like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. But you going back to riding the elevator up,
Yep.
and maybe just mentally collecting yourself, I would not have thought that would have been something that was actually helpful for your run on the treadmill that day.
Yeah. And especially when I started not feeling great later in the day, the hip flexor and the hamstring, just that moment to sit down just really helped. It still surprises me to this day how much I fought that going in and how much that ended up being such a benefit to me. And it's kind of trained me in other areas of my life. Like, okay, what is something that I'm dramatically fighting because I think it's going to be this negative, that if I just if I try it or I keep an open mind, might actually be a benefit in the long term. So it's been a fun little analogy of life, of here's this thing that I don't want at all, but at the end of the day, it was the thing that helped. So it's a fun way to look at life sometimes, of these little races, and then say, what can I learn and move forward with?
And you never know where benefits lie.
Never do.
Yeah, you never do. So was it hard to get the Guinness officials there? Like you contacted them? Did they take you serious?
So with Guinness, they don't actually send officials. You have to coordinate volunteers that sign and work on behalf of Guinness. So you have to have at least 2 per shift, maximum 4 hours. And they can't work any more than 4 hours at a time. So it's not like I can just have 2 people work all 24 hours. And then the challenge is they can't be associated with me, any of the brands that sponsor me, or the facility we're doing it in. And if you think about that for a second, well, it's like, how the hell are you going to get people if you can't have any relationships with any of the people I know? So I had to go back and forth with Guinness a lot and be like, well, if somebody follows 10,000 on Instagram, is that a relationship? And they're like, no. They can't be a sponsored athlete. And so we were able to then recruit, because 10,000's based in New York City. They were able to put out a bunch of stuff on their Instagram and say, hey, we're going to trade a gift card for apparel. Because that was one of the Guinness things, surprisingly, that you can do, is you can compensate and pay, even though they're volunteer judges. So we were able to compensate in gift cards to 10,000 for people to show up for 4-hour shifts. Cool. Even though they're familiar with 10,000, they don't represent or run for 10,000. We couldn't have had any athletes on the team or anything like that be a judge. But that was definitely the hardest part of the process, was just finding people that are willing to sit in a lobby for 4 hours with a dude they've never met, and sign a paper every hour that this is what they saw, this is how far you went. And 10,000 did a great job recruiting those people, because I wouldn't have wanted to do it myself.
Yeah. Well, early on that, I was like, well, what the heck constitutes a relationship? So I'm glad you figured that out. I think everyone's got it when they're attempting a record. They got to figure out what constitutes that relationship.
Yeah, Guinness Guinness is very slow to respond, but I think they realize that, and they answer very thoroughly. So they kind of answer your question, and then maybe any follow-up questions that you might have, they answer. So they kind of speed the correspondence up a little bit that way, which is good.
Is Guinness out of the United States?
The rep that I have is, I don't believe their headquarters is. I actually don't know. That's a
Okay.
fair question. It's Guinness is very interesting though. I think everybody like is familiar with their books and obviously the world records that they but when the internet started coming around, I remember back in the day, you go to the school book fair and you look at the Guinness book and there it is, right? It's like
Yep.
the chick
Yep.
with her fingernails and the neck and all that stuff. And well, with the internet, you can look up anything anywhere. So they actually became somewhat irrelevant, and they've recreated themselves as a marketing agency. And so as soon as they found out that I was working with a sponsor, they're like, whoa, 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 you owe us a ton of money. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, like if you want to say Guinness World Records, you have to pay us money. I'm like, I don't give a crap about saying Guinness. Like it's a world record. You can't own a world record. You just house it. And so they like their legal team actually contacted me when I said like, I'm not going to use your name. I'm just going to submit it for verification afterwards. And they're like, here's the rules and we're going to be monitoring this. And if any one of the brands that you are working with says Guinness, we're coming after you.
Whoa.
So this is how they've switched to make money now is like,
Yeah.
hey, it was like $16,000 and we can use their logo in a backdrop. I was like,
Jeez, that's
I was like,
wow.
I was
I
like,
didn't
and I was
expect
doing it
that.
for charity. Right? Yes, I had brands working with me, but I was doing this all for charity. I wasn't taking a penny. Like the brand wasn't taking a penny. We raised a bunch of money for the Lifetime Foundation for healthy eating in schools, and like that was the goal. And I was like, look, like Guinness, like come on, like I'm doing this for charity. I'm not making money off of this. And they're like, we don't care. You're working with a brand. It's going to be $16,000. Like,
Oh man.
nah, I'm not
Yeah,
doing
nah,
that.
nah. No way. No way. Oh man. So when you approach your races, what types of other management things do you prepare for? So for example, for me, I'm a regular coffee drinker. And so I like to have a little bit of caffeine during if I'm doing a 100-mile race. And so if I'm doing a 100-mile race, though, I'm like, okay, like I need to have a caffeine management plan. And my approach is to actually, I take a week off before I race a 100-mile race
Yep.
from not from running, but from caffeine. And then I wait to have a cup of coffee until mile 75 just to get a little extra boost towards the end there. And I was wondering if that was something that you also employ with
100% the
caffeine.
same. Yep, I do. I love coffee. I make myself coffee all the time. I pick a way of making coffee that's fancy. I have it upstairs. Like I just when like a
Nice.
lot of people got into weird hobbies during the pandemic, I got very very deep into craft coffee, and I have like a fancy espresso machine. I love coffee. So to answer your question, yes, I taper off of caffeine. I do a 1 week. I do 2 week taper with my run taper and caffeine. So the first week of my caffeine taper, I'll go to half calf, and then the week of the race, I'll have no caffeine whatsoever. And then depending on the race, I won't have a firm I get it now type of situation. I will do my best to wait as long as possible before I feel like I need it. So I think, yeah, in a lot of 100-mile races, it's been 100K to 80 miles, somewhere in there. So 62 to 80. It's just feeling it out of, okay, I need this boost now. The 250 that I just came off of, I didn't have it until midway through the second day at all. I had no caffeine
Wow.
until, almost 40 hours into the race or something like that.
That's
Um,
impressive.
so yeah, but it's a tool. I drink so much caffeine during the day normally, like it would take me 3 cups of coffee before the race just to bring me up to baseline. And I'd be having to sip coffee or drink caffeinated gels if I didn't do that taper period, because I love coffee so much.
Yeah, I survive on it too. That's pretty interesting that we both take a week off from caffeine to, make it have a. I guess like we both just have high tolerances to caffeine because we both drink caffeine a lot throughout the day.
Yeah.
And yeah, when it's racing, it's like, hey, like I want to make sure like we get some benefit from it. But one of the things that I have found with that approach is that the mental benefit, and it's something that just kind of puts me back into a really good mental place when I do get that caffeine in my system. And it often, you do feel better a little bit physically too, but the mental aspect of it was actually surprising to me.
Yeah, one of the things and one of the reasons I've been so successful lately at not using caffeine in races and later in races is I've started using liquid ketones, which give me that massive mental benefit. So I started using this product, Ketone IQ, and I just mix it in my hydration bottles, and I sip on these ketones, and that I found gives me more mental focus for longer than a shot of caffeine ever will. Because if I take a gel with like 100 milligrams of caffeine, like that is rocket fuel. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Right. Because it hits you all at once. Right. When's the last time you chugged a cup of coffee in a second? Right. Like I sip a cup of coffee. So when I take a gel with a ton of caffeine, it hits super hard. But that candle burns, or that match burns bright, and it diminishes and you kind of crash. And I found this huge mental benefit with this ketone IQ, that it allows me to kind of not feel like I need that mental, like, run through walls feeling of caffeine. So it's just, it's interesting. Now caffeine is more just, I'm sleepy and I need an upper to kind of stop feeling sleepy, versus I'm losing focus and I need to refocus. So it's cool now that I found this other product that I can use with caffeine and with calories, that it's kind of bringing everything together for me, where my fueling strategy has never been better right now.
Yeah, I'd never heard of ketones. Like, this is the first time I ever heard of them.
Oh man, you got some research to do, buddy. Yeah, so when the body goes into like low blood sugar, it starts producing ketones, and I'm not a scientist, so I could be getting some of this information wrong, but it's basically like when you go into ketosis, a keto diet, it's what you're producing, and your body can use it as a fuel source and produce it. So having liquid ketones kind of just cuts the process of going through ketosis. And like I've had a ton of success with it. It's a brand that I found, like, I think I started using it in December and tried it at a race in January. I'm like, holy crap, this stuff worked. I used it at my 48 hour, and my wife is like, man, it's like, you were more cognitively aware after 48 hours than I've seen you at the end of most 100 milers, because I was using that product. So there's something to it. I'm a firm believer, full disclosure, I'm now sponsored by them, because I was like, guys, like, this is amazing. Let me, like, give me free product, please. I am spending a lot of money and I can't afford it. But like, go, there's other brands out there too. I'm not saying that only go by that brand, but ketones are magic for ultra runners, because they allow you to not really hit those highs and lows. They allow you to kind of just stay in that middle operating space, so that you don't have to get yourself out of a hole at any point.
Yeah, I'll have to check them out and test them out in training. I'll be doing a 100-mile race in September up in Steamboat. You're probably familiar with it, Run Rabbit Run. So that'll be something for me to test out here. I like to do a 3.5 month build up to my 100-mile races. So I will begin training here June 1st.
Nice.
And starting to get long runs in and stuff like that. So I'll have to test that out. I've never heard of ketones, and I'll have to check out. So the brand is Ketone IQ.
Yeah, so it's the product is Ketone IQ, but it's kind of the brand too. The brand is HVMN, so it's Health Via Modern Nutrition is the name of the brand. It's a cool product. I'll warn everybody, it doesn't taste great. That's why I mix it with other stuff. You'll try it and you're like, dang, that's
sounds crazy.
But I'm not out here just sipping on it for taste, but it works, right? How many nutritional products do we use in this world that taste like crap but work? Add another one to the list.
There you go. Well, hey, speaking of nutrition, one of the things that I did want to engage with you today was, just because we're both plant-based, I want to hear I always love meeting other plant-based athletes, other plant-based people, and just kind of hearing about what are their favorite aspects, what are their favorite things about being plant-based that they just really enjoy the most.
The biggest thing for me, the two things are, I sleep better and I get back to running faster after big efforts. So I made the switch to vegetarian when I started realizing my sleep data was really crappy. I work for a sleep company. I spend my life looking at data. I just started realizing that there was a big correlation from days that I ate a ton of meat, to nights that I slept poorly, to days that I had a really crappy workout the next day. And so I was like, okay, and I'm really big on N of 1 experimentation. Like, let's do it. Let's try. I hypothesis was that if I ate less meat or if I ate no meat, I would recover better and perform better. And so I took an exhaustive blood panel and did a 3-month trial. I looked at all my data, my sleep, my heart rate, my HRV, my respiratory rate, things like that. And then after 3 months, I took another blood panel, and pretty much across the board, everything was better. Like everything.
Wow.
I mean, even things that people are like, how, wouldn't your testosterone go down? I've had chronically low testosterone my entire adult life. That went up. So it was like, boom. Okay. I'm a believer. I felt better. I never recovered better. I mean, it's to the point now where like a hard 100-mile effort and there's no inflammation in my body the next day. Just because I was like, the meat was just causing me so much inflammation. And it's funny. People hear this conversation and they think I'm this huge plant-based advocate. And the truth is I'm really not. I'm an advocate of using your own data to make the best decision for you. Because I think it's just so easy for people to fall into like a meat eater diet or carnivore diet or wherever you're at without realizing that, like, it might be more beneficial for you to go plant-based or to eat less meat or do anything. And there's a million reasons that people go plant-based for, ethics and the environment and stuff like that. And I love that. And that's just like a really great byproduct of my choice. But at the end of the day, I made the decision because the data said that this was the right decision for me. And I wanted to perform at the best of my abilities. And now I'm a year and a half in to being fully plant-based. And to this day, I get quarterly blood draws and still look at my sleep data, recovery data every single day. And there's absolutely nothing that I see that says I should go back to eating meat.
Yeah, I love that you had all that testing done. I'm inspired. I've never done that. It's more of, and like perceptions of yourself, like you need that objective data because we have perceptions of ourselves that sometimes aren't true, right? But I have the perceptions of myself that I have faster recovery and better athletic performance. I don't have any data. I've never looked into data. And I think that data is important for each person because, some different diets might be better for different people. It's not to say that, plant-based is for everyone, but if you check the data and the data shows all these things, your testosterone suddenly comes up for the first time in life, like, hey, this is something good for me.
And it's funny when I'll, like a hardcore meat eater, and I don't judge anybody's lifestyle. If that's best for you, that's best for you. Like, you do you, I don't care. But if they come to me and they're like, man, like, why do you eat only plants and all this stuff? Like, how can that be good for you? And I can easily say, well, I have a 1.5 year data set that says it's good for me. What do you have that says that eating meat is good for you?
Yeah, I love it.
Right. And and like I said, I'm not poo-pooing on meat-based diets. There are people out there that I can 100% guarantee that the data says it's good for them, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people that act like they know what that data is on themselves, and they do not have it. And it's funny to me every time.
Yeah. So if someone did want to go get that data on themselves and check themselves, where do you recommend?
Yeah, so there's a couple of blood draw companies that you can use. I use a company called Blokes. Like, it's just getblokes.com. They specialize in men's health and in getting draws. They do a lot of stuff that I don't get into. I can't legally, like TRT and stuff like that for men that have testosterone issues. I obviously can't touch that, but I find that their blood draw panel is exhaustive as you can get, kind of quote unquote over the counter, other than going to just your doctor, which I sometimes struggle with just going to my doctor and having to like struggle to get the results directly. The other site that is probably more known in the outdoor active industry is Inside Tracker. And they do something similar where you can just order a panel. A doctor will say, like, sign off on it, and then you can just go to any LabCorp or Quest or something and get that taken care of. But I've worked in healthcare a lot, and I'm just a huge advocate for owning your own data, being aware of your data. Even if I see nothing on my data today, if I get 20 blood draws and then the 21st, there's a bunch of stuff different, we're going to see that trend and know that, okay, now something's wrong. But if I didn't get any of those first 20 and I just got that 21st, how would I know that I need to take action on any of that stuff? So, like, we don't even have to talk about diet or anything like that. Just general health. I think there's so much value in being aware of your blood data, your health, your metrics. And I mean, for me, adding in daily sleep data is really good, because I can start seeing all of a sudden my resting heart rate isn't settling. Okay, something's coming on. My HRV is not coming up at night. Something's coming on. I mean, I was able to, first time I had COVID, be able to predict it 3 days out, saying, okay, these are the signs and symptoms of people that are reporting having COVID. Yep. Sure enough, 3 days later, it tested positive. So, data can create a trend on your life, and it allows you to stay healthier longer, I think.
Yeah, I think it can boost the quality of your life. You have a better understanding of yourself physiologically.
Yeah, and as a lead athlete, I honestly have to make less decisions. If I just say, like, I live a data-driven life, the data is making the decision for me. I gave up drinking because data says that I wasn't sleeping great. I gave up meat because data says I was, like, it. I didn't have decisions to make because the data said do this. And so it's like, I have enough important decisions to make in my life and challenging workouts to get through mentally. The last thing I want to do is have to decide, what I eat every day, if I want to go to the bar, and like, is drinking good for me, bad for me? No, the data says it's not, so I'm going to quit.
Yeah. My wife she's got an Aura Ring, and she loves it. And her sleep diminishes when she even drinks lightly, like a glass of wine or two. Her sleep is diminished that night.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually work for Aura Ring full time. I don't know if you do that, or
nice.
any of our listeners knew. Yeah, no, I do learning and development programs for Aura Ring. So when I say I work for a sleep company and I live in sleep data and benefits of sleep, I literally spend all day talking about sleep and benefits of health metrics.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, she's loving her ring, and she got it for Christmas from her mom. And it's something that she monitors daily, and she loves wearing it when she works out and sleep and all that good stuff. So, hey, with being a plant-based athlete, do you follow Scott Jurek?
I do. Yeah. His book was one of the first books I ever read on ultra running. And it was kind of one of the first few that lit the fire.
And was that the one that has the recipes in it?
Eat and Run. Yeah. Every once in a while you get like a bean burrito recipe. And it's funny, I haven't reread it since going plant-based, and I need to. It's something that's come up a couple of times now, but I really want to go back and reread that.
Yeah. Well, hey, kind of moving towards the conclusion of our conversation, I did want to ask you a couple questions that are more advice for people. And so the first one being, you've had this awesome, really tons of accomplishments throughout your career, your running career. What knowledge would you want to pass to beginning runners?
Yeah, I think the most important one is, and it's more philosophical really, but there's this saying that the person that loves the journey more than the destination will get more out of it than the person that just loves the destination. So, find your ability to learn the process, learn the journey, and not just hyper focus on doing a 5K or doing a 10K or a marathon or 100 or whatever that is. Just get out and run, right? That's step one. Like, stop putting these artificial goals in front of you that says, like, if I'm going to be a runner, I have to do a 5K. Screw that. If you're running, if you take one step, I don't care how slow or fast it is, you're a runner. Like, that is the thing that people get so caught up in creating goals and artificial hurdles from themselves that they forget that, like, let's just run. Like, find a cool trail, go hike most of it and run 10 steps. Who cares how much of it you run? So that's really the biggest thing, is just to, and something that I wish any of my coaches when I was younger could have at any point articulated. Like, at some point you should enjoy running. Right? Not every workout is enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. There are some that I absolutely hate and are just so miserable, but I know that, like, that is part of the journey to get to where I want to go. But for the most part, I mean, there are days that I leave my watch behind. I don't care. I do not care. I have loops that I'll go on. I know in my neighborhood well enough, like, if I want to go for an easy hour, drop the watch behind, go walk it. There's at least one day a week that I set aside to, if I hear a cool bird or a noise or something, I'm going to stop and I'm going to find it. Like, I just, that moment, that 30, 40 seconds of like, whoa, what was that noise, isn't going to make me not elite runner, right? Like
Right.
it's going to keep that flame going, that damn, like I saw this cool bird today, or like, yeah, it's the fattest squirrel I've ever seen in my life. Stuff like that can be a lot of fun. So to new runners, like figure out what that is for you. Like don't get so hyper focused on, oh, I have to run a 5K, I have to run a mile, or I have to run a 10-minute mile or a 5-minute mile. Like at the end of the day, who gives a crap? Like
Yep.
go out, especially if you're new to the sport, go out and just figure out what it feels like to run. Like figure out what enjoyment feels like. Listen to the nature around you, because that's why we're running, right? It's for the most part, it's to get outside, to get moving, move your body, appreciate your body. And I just see so many new runners that are like, the first thing they buy is a GPS watch, and it's like, dang, like, yeah, like at the end of the day, we have to have some kind of a metric on growth if you want to keep growing. But should that be the first thing you buy when you get into running? Probably not. Like just find that enjoyment first.
Yeah, and I want to say thanks for saying, if you go run a step, you're a runner. Like I love that, and that's something that I celebrate, and I think that it's a great outlook too, because people will put these almost like normative expectations in their head, like, hey, I got to do a 5K so fast, or hey, I have to complete a marathon to be a runner. It's like, hey, if you run one step, you're a runner. Have fun
Yep.
with the process. The process is the most fun part, anyways. Like, like you can go
Absolutely.
enjoy it with others. You can go have great solitude. You can get into an adventure. Just, yeah, like you're a runner if you run one step. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah, it's true. And something that I do, right? Because you just said, like, enjoy the process. Don't let the race define your training or the journey. And one of the things that I always do is I journal before my race. How was my training? It's so easy for people to define the quality of their training based on the success of their race. And I think that's total bullcrap. Like you could have an amazing training block that, like, man, I did all of the work. I trained so hard. I'm in the best shape of my life, and then just have a bad race. And then all of a sudden the mind's like, if you don't take that moment to celebrate how good your training was, you could let that bad race totally derail all of that positive training you just did. So I just focus on the journey. Don't focus on the destination. Use the destination of that race to be a celebration, right? Whatever happens that day happens. You just put in a ton of hard work though.
Yeah, you just put in a ton of hard work. That it's play. You went and had a bunch of play, and
Again,
you had one
we
day
get to
that
do this.
yeah, it's I think that's fantastic. That's really
As
fantastic.
I tell people, like, at the end of the day, I get to do this. I get to run through the woods looking for tents with food in them and do that for a day. Like that sounds like a pretty darn good day. Just run around looking at trees and birds and finding snacks in the woods.
I love how you just summed up ultra marathons.
Yeah,
Looking for tents in the woods with some food.
that's all it is, man.
That's great. That's great. All right, so one more tidbit of advice from Dawn. What advice do you have for someone that is looking to? So we're gonna, the last piece of advice was about beginner runners. What
Yep.
advice do you have for someone looking to get into ultra marathons that just,
Yeah.
gosh, the distance is so scary?
Yeah, I would extend this from ultra to like anybody looking to level up. Like, hey, I this is really hard going from I've never done more than a 5K. I want to do a marathon. I've done a marathon. I want to do 100. Anybody that wants to level up, the best advice I have for you is to like surround yourself with experts. Find people that have knowledge. There's so many elements, especially when it gets into 100-mile racing. There's so many elements that it's okay not to know everything. I don't know everything, but I surround myself with people that do and want to see me succeed. So I have a sports dietitian that I work with that can help me dial in my nutrition for every single race. I haven't worked with a running coach for quite a while, but I'm actually just going back to starting to work with a running coach because I have a very specific goal in mind that I do need help with, and it's okay to ask for help in that regard, right? I'm training at the top of my game right now, but I'm still going to ask for help. I have two different strength coaches. One's a more mobility running specific strength coach, and one is more of the brute strength coach that can help me with straight line speed and things like that. So these are areas that I'm not experts in, but I know I want to be better at. And when it comes to doing 100-mile races or leveling up in running, like anytime you can optimize 1 or 2% of each area, you're going to be more likely to succeed. So that's my biggest bit of advice for anybody. Even if you've done a 100-mile race and your level up is you just want to do it faster, or you want to get the big buckle at Leadville versus the small buckle, seek out people that are experts in the area that you know you're bad at and get that help, because it has helped me in my career. And I would not be where I was today without surrounding myself with the people, with a team that can help me get better in those areas.
Yeah, Don, that's gosh, what a great outlook for life too. Being able to recognize your weaknesses and where you need help and support from others. It's just such a great metaphor for life. Don, this has been a great conversation. We've been talking for just about an hour or so, and I feel like I could talk to you for another hour just because I love talking about running. Yeah, exactly. I love this stuff so much, but I know that you're a busy man, and I have to let you go. So I'm gonna want to say thanks for coming on to the show. It was a great conversation. I appreciate probably for the millionth time talking about your world records, and also, giving some advice to runners, and also just celebrating the act of running. I love that.
Yeah. And the one thing I will say is, like, when I said surround yourself with experts, if you think I'm an expert in any of this and you have a piece of advice or a question, anybody, reach out. That's where I'm at in my running career, is wanting to give whatever information back that I can to help anybody get to where I'm at today faster. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. I will absolutely do my best to help in any way possible. It's one of the greatest areas of joy for me right now is people asking me like, hey man, I'm doing my first 100. Like, what should I do? Something like that. I love that stuff. So people ask whatever you got. I love it.
Yeah. So Don, I'll put your Instagram name into the description of this podcast episode. So if anyone does want to DM you about and get some running advice or just hear about running or whatnot, they can access
Love
you
it.
and find your account.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I owe you the bigger thanks, but you are welcome. And all right, we'll call it an episode, and I'll throw on that outro music.